Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Today's topic is the 1941 Cleveland Indians AL MLB baseball season. Again, the Tribe was playing in the American League, the junior circuit of Major League Baseball. Home games were played at League Park, 45 games there, and also at Cleveland Municipal Stadium, 32 games at the stadium. The Tribe had a decent year in 1941. They finished in fourth place with a record of 75 and 79, 4 games under 500, winning percentage of .487, 26 games out of first place. The first place team was the New York Yankees, who were 101 and 53, winning percentage of .656, really good. Second place, the Boston Red Sox were 84 and 70, 17 games out of first. So the Yankees really ran away with the pennant. Third place, the Chicago White Sox, 77 and 77. Fourth place, the Cleveland Indians, 75 and 79. Fifth place, the Detroit Tigers, 75 and 79 as well. Sixth place, the St. Louis Browns, 70 and 84. Seventh place, the Washington Senators, 70 and 84. Eighth and last place, the Philadelphia Athletics of Connie Mack, who are 64 and 90, winning percentage of .416, 37 games out of first. I'm reading a fine book. The title is John McGraw by Charles C. Alexander, 1988. McGraw was a player for the Baltimore Orioles in the 1890s when the Baltimore Orioles and Cleveland Spiders were the top teams in MLB. And so he was a great rival for Cleveland, the Cleveland team in the 1890s. He was also the manager of the New York Giants between 1902 and 1932. Really something. In 1941, Ted Williams of the Boston Red Sox hit .406, and that's the last time an MLB player has hit .400 in a season. Lou Gehrig died on June 2nd, 1941, at age 37 of the disease that was named after him. Very tragic. He gone way too soon. In Cleveland, Mayor Harold Burton and Safety Director Elliot Ness cleaned up the crime-ridden city. They both fought organized crime in Cleveland. Later, there was a TV show that was developed based on that called The Untouchables. The Tribe started the 1941 season 16 and 4, really good. They're in first place on April 29th, and on May 25th, they were 28 and 12. On July 17th, at the stadium, the Tribe and New York Yankees battled, and Joe DiMaggio had a 56-game hitting streak on the line. Huge crowd, 67,467 fans came, the largest night game in MLB history up to that time, and DiMaggio's streak was ended by Cleveland. In 1941, the Mount Rushmore carving was completed in the Black Hills at Keystone, South Dakota, by the sculptor Gutzon Borglum. And he had the 4 American presidents carved into stone: George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, and Theodore Roosevelt. In 1941, Citizen Kane the movie was produced by Orson Welles, and some consider that the greatest movie of all time. On June 14th, at the Polo Grounds in New York City, Joe Louis fought Billy Conn in a heavyweight boxing title fight, and Louis won the fight with a knockout in the 13th round. The Tribe was in first place for part of April, all of May, and into early June. However, then they faded late in the year. Cy Slapnicka, the Tribe GM, was worn out and resigned at the end of the season, but remained a scout. All American men between the ages of 21 and 46 were required to register for the draft in 1941. Of course, the Second World War had been raging in Europe since 1939, and the U.S. was about to get involved in December directly, and when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Night games in MLB were limited to seven games per team for the season. The Brooklyn Dodgers had spring training in Havana, Cuba, and they were welcomed there by the dictator Fulgencio Batista, who later was overthrown by Fidel Castro. The Brooklyn Dodgers players, many of them became friends with Ernest Hemingway, the famous author living in Cuba. The Star Spangled Banner became standard in MLB before games in 1941. In June, the members of the U.S. military were given free admission to American League ballparks. Also in 1941, there were plastic liners were placed inside the caps for the Brooklyn Dodgers, Chicago Cubs, and the Tribe. And this was the early attempts at batting helmets for the players. Hank Greenberg of the Detroit Tigers was drafted into the U.S. Army on May 8th. I'm reading another fine book called, the title is The Game Must Go On by Hank Greenberg, Pete Gray, and the Great Days of Baseball on the Home Front in World War II by John Klima, 2015. In 1941, Greenberg was the reigning American League MVP and the highest paid MLB player, making $55,000 a year, and he was drafted into the Army. Attendance for Tribe games in 1941 was 745,948, down 155,000 from 1940, or an average of 9,625 fans per game. Now the coaching staff, Luke Sewell was one of the coaches. He was a Tribe coach between 1939 and 1941. He had been a Tribe player between 1921 and 1932 and in 1939. And he was an MLB, so this was the end of his time in Cleveland. He was an MLB manager until 1952 with the Cincinnati Reds. And in June of 1941, he was offered the job of manager of the St. Louis Browns, so left Cleveland. And in 1944, helped the St. Louis Browns, win their only American League title and go to the World Series, in the All-St. Louis World Series, where the St. Louis Browns played the St. Louis Cardinals. Luke Sewell. George Seuss, or Such Seuss, was another coach. He was also a catcher. He was a Tribe coach between 1941 and 1947, and from 1948 to 1949. He played in one game as a catcher, but did not bat. So he was technically a player coach. Seuss was born in 1907 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and died in 1986 in Sarasota, Florida, at age 78. For his playing career, he batted .228 with 2 home runs and 61 hits. Seuss played for the Philadelphia Phillies, Detroit Tigers, Pittsburgh Pirates, St. Louis Browns, and Cleveland Indians between 1929 and 1944. His son George Jr. was an MLB pitcher. Seuss went to Glenville State College and St. Bonaventure University. He earned the nickname Good Kid for his eagerness to help with mundane tasks involved with baseball, like, for example, taking care of the equipment and so forth, moving the equipment around. He was a bullpen coach for 29 years with the Tribe, the Boston Red Sox, Kansas City Athletics, Milwaukee Braves, Washington Senators, and Texas Rangers from 1941 to 1972. He's also a manager in the minor leagues for the Tribe and the Red Sox. In the minor leagues, he played for the Beaumont Exporters, Fort Worth Cats, Galveston Buccaneers, Hollywood Stars, Kansas City Blues, Montreal Royals, Newark Bears, Shreveport Sports, and Toledo Mud Hens. And he won a World Series title as a coach in 1948 with the Cleveland Indians. George Seuss. Earl Whitehill was the pitching coach. He was a Tribe coach just in 1941, and he had been a Tribe player in 1937 and 1938. Earl Whitehill. Dutch Zwilling was another coach in 1941. He was born in 1888 in St. Louis, Missouri, and died in 1978 at age 89. For his career, he batted .284 with 30 home runs and 202 RBIs. Zwilling played for the Chicago White Sox, the Chicago Whales, and the Chicago Cubs between 1910 and 1916. He won a Federal League title in 1915 with the Chicago Whales. He was the Federal League Home Run Champion in 1914. He's also the Federal League RBI Champion in 1915 with Lave Cross, Raleigh Zider, and those were the only 3 players to play on 3 teams for the same city. Zwilling was the last surviving member of the 1915 Federal League champions Chicago Whales. Alphabetically, he was the last MLB player all-time until 2015 when Tony Zych made his MLB debut. He's the all-time home run leader for the Federal League. He was he was also a tribe scout. In the minor leagues, Zwilling played for the Battle Creek Crickets, St. Joseph Drummers, Lincoln Lynx, Oakland Oaks, and Birmingham Barons. And he was also a scout for the New York Mets. Dutch Zwilling. Roger Peckinpah was the manager in 1941. He played for the Cleveland Naps in 1910 and from 1912 to 1913, was a tribe manager from 1928 to 1933 and in 1941. After the season, he was promoted to be vice president and later general manager and president of the Cleveland Indians. Roger Peckinpah. Starting lineup, Rollie Hemsley was the catcher. Hemsley batted .240 with 69 hits. He had 29 runs, 10 doubles, 5 triples, 2 home runs, 24 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 18 walks in 98 games. And Hemsley was with Cleveland from 1938 to 1941. So this was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1947. Rollie Hemsley. Hal Trosky was at first base. Trosky batted .294 with 91 hits. He scored 43 runs, 17 doubles, 11 home runs, 51 RBIs, a stolen base, 44 walks in 89 games. Trosky was with Cleveland from 1933 to 1941. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1946. He's in the Tribe Hall of Fame. During the season, he was often disabled by migraine headaches and could not play. On August 17th, he was in a collision at first base, playing first base with White Sox pitcher Ted Lyons, who was a base runner, and Trosky had a broken thumb on the play and was out the rest of the season, the last 39 games of the year, and that was the end of his Tribe career. 1942, Trosky decided not to play. He thought he'd rest for a year and hoping that would help with his headaches. So he worked on his farm in 1942. 1943, Trosky worked at the Amana refrigeration plant, which was involved in war production. He listened to ML games on the radio. His wife, Lorraine, according to biographer William Johnson, quote, watched him play, quote, watching tears of frustration slip down his face while he listened to the various broadcasters describe the play of his favorite former teammates. He ached from the bottom of his heart to play baseball. 1944, Trosky made a comeback with the Chicago White Sox, led the team with 10 home runs. 1945, he was back with the Amana refrigeration plant. 1946, he returned to the White Sox his final year and hit .254 with 2 home runs and 31 RBIs, then retired. From 1947 to 1950, he was a White Sox scout. His son Jim Trosky was an airplane pilot with United Airlines. In 1964, he was piloting a New York Yankees charter flight, and the co-pilot announced that the son of Hal Trosky was on board. And Jim Trosky remembered, quote, Mel Allen came up to the cockpit to meet me and to tell me that my dad was one of the finest gentlemen he knew in his life. Just out of the blue. You can imagine my pride in that moment. Hal Trosky died in 1979 after a massive heart attack. His son, Hal Trosky Jr., was an MLB player with the White Sox in 1958. Trosky's biographer, William H. Johnson, wrote, quote, Hal Trosky was by all accounts a wonderful human being, father, husband, friend, and baseball player. At the heart of the Heartlands game, at least in eastern Iowa, Hal Trosky's shadow will always exist somewhere in the background. Now, at one point in his career, the Tribe was playing the Yankees in a game, and Babe Ruth was a base runner at first base and said this to Trosky, quote, Don't worry about holding me on, kid. I ain't going no place. Just drop back and play it safe. If Lou Gehrig hit one at you up here, it would take your head off. And Trosky never forgot that small kindness from Babe Ruth. Hal Trosky. Ray Mack was at second base. Mack batted .228 with 114 hits. He scored 54 runs, 22 doubles, 4 triples, 9 home runs, 44 RBIs, 8 stolen bases, 54 walks in 145 games. And Mack was with Cleveland from 1938 to 1946. Ray Mack. Lou Boudreau was at shortstop. Boudreau batted .257 with 149 hits. He scored 95 runs, 45 doubles, 8 triples, 10 home runs, 56 RBIs, 9 stolen bases, 85 walks, and 148 games. Boudreau was a Tribe player between 1938 and 1941 and was a Tribe player-manager from 1942 to 1950. In the All-Star, he played on the American League All-Star team in 1941 and went 2 for 2 as the American League won the game 7-5 in Detroit. When Joe DiMaggio had his 56-game hitting streak stopped at the stadium, there was a hard-hit ball to Boudreau. It was a bad hop ground ball. He threw up his hands to protect his face, made a barehanded grab, and started a double play, and that was DiMaggio's last time at bat. Lou Boudreau. Ken Keltner was at third base. Keltner batted .269 with 156 hits. He scored 83 runs, 31 doubles, 13 triples, 23 home runs, 84 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 51 walks in 149 games. And Trotsky was with Cleveland from 1937 to 1944 and from 1946 to 1949. On July 17th, the Tribe, as I said, Tribe and Yankees were playing at the stadium with this huge crowd of 67,000 fans, and Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak was stopped. Ken Keltner made 2 outstanding plays at third base, hard smashes just over the bag, and he threw out DiMaggio both times, kind of like Brooks Robinson years later. After the game, Keltner and his wife walked out of the stadium with a police escort. Keltner wrote, quote, "Joe DiMaggio had a lot of Italian friends in Cleveland, and the club wanted to make sure I got to my car okay." Also 1941, because of this, the country was electrified by Joe DiMaggio's long hitting streak, and there was a hit song, Joltin' Joe DiMaggio. DiMaggio's, reportedly, his favorite reading material was Superman and Batman comics. Ken Keltner. G. Walker was in left field. Walker batted .283 with 126 hits, 56 runs, 26 doubles, 11 triples, 6 home runs, 48 RBIs, 12 stolen bases, 18 walks in 121 games. Walker was born in 1908 in Gulfport, Mississippi, and died in 1981 in Jackson, Mississippi at age 73. For his career, he batted .294 with 124 hits and 998 RBIs. Walker played for the Detroit Tigers, Chicago White Sox, Washington Senators, Cleveland Indians, and Cincinnati Reds between 1931 and 1945. He was an All-Star in 1937 with the Tigers and won a World Series title in 1935 with the Tigers. His given name was Gerald. They called him G. For his career, he had 223 stolen bases. 9 times he was in the top 10 in stolen bases in the league. Walker went to the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, and played on the football and baseball teams. He's in the Mississippi and Ole Miss Sports Halls of Fame. Walker was a fiery competitor. He also liked to clown around. They called him the madman from Mississippi. Sometimes he was inattentive and overzealous on the base paths. Once he tried to steal a base during an intentional walk. In 1934 World Series, he was picked off first base while arguing with the St. Louis Cardinals bench. 1937, Walker hit for the cycle on opening day, the only time that's happened in MLB history. He hit a home run in his first at-bat, then a triple, double, and single. After he retired, he was a coach for the Cincinnati Reds in 1946. His brother Herb Walker was also an MLB player. In the minors, Walker played for the Fort Smith Twins, Evansville Hubs, and Wheeling Stogies. G. Walker. Roy Weatherly was in center field. Weatherly batted .289 with 105 hits. He scored 59 runs, 21 doubles, 5 triples, 3 home runs, 37 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 32 walks in 102 games. And Weatherly was with Cleveland from 1936 to 1942. Cleveland sports writer Franklin Whitey Lewis wrote, quote, "Roy Weatherly, the drawlin' Texan, was the top umpire baiter of his day. His remarks to the gentleman in blue cost him many dollars and frequent banishments. During one game in Cleveland, when Little Stormy was being kicked out of a game by umpire Brick Owens, Roy's father, up from Pineland, Texas, charged onto the field and challenged the arbiter. Roy Weatherly." Jeff Heath was in right field. Heath batted .340. Wow, 199 hits, 89 runs, 32 doubles, 20 triples, 24 home runs, 123 RBIs, 18 stolen bases, 50 walks in 151 games. And Heath was with Cleveland from 1936 to 1945. In 1941, Heath hit the first upper deck home run at Cleveland Municipal Stadium. An outstanding year for Jeff Heath. The bench players included Soup Campbell, who played some outfield. Campbell batted .250 with 82 hits. He scored 36 runs, had 10 doubles, 4 triples, 3 home runs, 35 RBIs, a stolen base, 31 walks in 104 games. And Campbell was with Cleveland from 1940 to 1941. This was the end of his MLB career. He continued playing in the minor leagues until 1947 and was a minor league manager until 1952. Soup Campbell. Oscar Grimes played some first base. Grimes batted .238 with 58 hits. He scored 28 runs, 9 doubles, 3 triples, 4 home runs, 24 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, 39 walks in 77 games. And Grimes was with Cleveland from 1938 to 1942. Oscar Grimes. Gene DeSaules was a spare catcher. DeSaules batted .201 with 38 hits. He scored 20 runs, 5 doubles, a triple, a home run, 17 RBIs, a stolen base, 14 walks in 66 games. DeSaules was born in 1907 in Worcester, Massachusetts, and died in 1994 in Flint, Michigan at age 87. For his career, he batted .233 with 3 home runs and 187 RBIs. DeSaules played for the Detroit Tigers, Boston Red Sox, Cleveland Indians, and Philadelphia Athletics. Between 1930 and 1946, they called him Red. He was a light hitter, but a superior defensive catcher, and also very good in handling pitchers. After he retired, he was a manager in the minors. His parents were French-Canadian. He went to the College of the Holy Cross and played on the Crusaders baseball team. In the Second World War, DeSaules was in the U.S. Marine Corps. As a rookie with Detroit, he was cocky and gave umpire Cal Hubbard a hard time. Now, there was a close play at second base, and Hubbard called DeSaules out. And then, reportedly, DeSaules said, "You can't call me out." DeSaules said sweetly, and then Hubbard said, "Oh no, why not?" And then DeSaules said, "I'm sitting on the ball." When he retired, his fielding percentage as a catcher was .989, the second highest in MLB history, behind Frankie Pytlak at the time. In the minors, he was a manager for the Williamsport Tigers for 3 years, the Flint Arrows, and the Little Rock Travelers for 9 years. In the minor leagues, he played for the Hollywood Stars, San Diego Padres, and Toledo Mud Hens, and he was also a scout for the Milwaukee Braves. Gene DeSaules. Bo Bell was a utility player. Bell batted .192 with 20 hits. He scored 12 runs, had 4 doubles, 3 triples, 9 RBIs, a stolen base, 10 walks in 48 games. And Bell was with Cleveland in 1940 and 1941. This was the end of his MLB career. Bo Bell. Larry Rosenthal played some outfield. Rosenthal batted .187 with 14 hits. He scored 10 runs, had 3 doubles, a triple, a home run, 8 RBIs, a stolen base, 9 walks in 45 games. Rosenthal was born in 1910 in St. Paul, Minnesota, and died in 1992 in Woodbury, Minnesota at age 81. For his career, he batted .263 with 22 home runs and 189 RBIs. Rosenthal played for the Chicago White Sox, Cleveland Indians, New York Yankees, and Philadelphia Athletics between 1936 and 1945. During his first 50 games of his career, he was on base 3 or more times, 19 times. He's second to Jeremy Giambi with the most walks for a player with fewer than 1,500 at-bats. Larry Rosenthal. Hank Edwards played some outfield. Edwards batted .221 with 15 hits. He scored 10 runs, had a double, a triple, a home run, 6 RBIs, 2 walks in 16 games. Edwards was born in 1919 in Elmwood Place, Ohio, and died in 1988 in Anaheim, California at age 69. For his career, he batted .280 with 51 home runs and 276 RBIs. Edwards played for the Cleveland Indians, Chicago Cubs, Brooklyn Dodgers, Cincinnati Reds, Chicago White Sox, and St. Louis Browns between 1941 and 1953. He had an injury-plagued career. During his career, he had a broken ankle, a fractured collarbone, and dislocated shoulder. He led the American League in triples with 16 in 1946. For his career, he had 613 hits, 116 doubles, and 41 triples. He was in the U.S. military in the Second World War. Edwards, in the minor leagues, played for the Mansfield Braves, Charleston Senators, Cedar Rapids Raiders, Wilkes-Barre Barons, Baltimore Orioles, and Portland Beavers. Hank Edwards. Rusty Peters was an infielder. Peters batted .206 with 13 hits. He scored 6 runs, had 2 doubles, 2 RBIs, 7 walks in 29 games. Peters was with Cleveland from 1940 to 1944 and in 1946. Rusty Peters. Jim Hegan was a spare catcher. Hegan batted .319 with 15 hits. He scored 4 runs, had 2 doubles, a home run, 5 RBIs, 4 walks in 16 games. Hegan was born in 1920 in Lynn, Massachusetts, and died in 1984 in Swampscott, Massachusetts at age 63. For his career, he batted .228 with 92 home runs and 525 RBIs. Hegan played for the Cleveland Indians, Detroit Tigers, Philadelphia Phillies, San Francisco Giants, and Chicago Cubs between 1941 and 1960. He was a 5-time All-Star in 1947 and from 1940 to 1952. He won World Series titles in 1948 with the Tribe and in 1961 and 1962 as a coach for the New York Yankees. He's in the Tribe Hall of Fame. He also worked as a scout. He was one of the best defensive catchers and handlers of pitchers. In the Second World War, he was in the U.S. Coast Guard. In 1948, he was 19th in the American League in MVP voting. Bob Feller said this, quote, "Jim Hegan was one of the best defensive catchers in baseball history. Jim called a good game. We disagreed rarely. Jim was very good at keeping pitchers calm." Bob Lemon wrote this, quote, "When I first started pitching, I used to shake him off sometimes. Invariably, they'd get a hit. So I stopped shaking him off." For his career, Hegan had 1,087 hits. He's the Tribe leader in games played as a catcher, for catchers. Hegan caught 6 20-game winners in his career. Bob Feller, Bob Lemon, Gene Bearden, Early Wynn, Mike Garcia, and Herb Score. He caught 7 pitchers who went to the Hall of Fame. Hegan was a light hitter, and he's almost forgotten. He coached Thurman Munson and Rick Dempsey with the Yankees. Was a Yankee coach from 1960 to 1973, a Tigers coach from 1974 to 78, and back with the Yankees coaching from 79 to 80. He was a Yankee scout in 1984 when he died. His son Mike Hegan was an MLB first baseman from 1964 to 1977 and was a Tribe TV broadcaster from 1989 to 2011. Jim Hegan. Buck Frierson played some outfield. Frierson batted .273 with 3 hits and 11 at-bats. He scored 2 runs, had a double, 2 RBIs, a walk in 5 games. Frierson was born in 1917 in Chakotah, Texas, and died in 1996 in Paris, Texas at age 78. His MLB career was just with the Cleveland Indians in 1941. In 1947, in the minor leagues with the Sherman-Denison Twins, he had 58 home runs and 197 RBIs. Frierson played in the minors for the Cedar Rapids Raiders, Wilkes-Barre Barons, Dallas Eagles, Denver Bears, and Paris Indians. He played in the minors from 1937 to 1953. His 197 RBIs that one year in 47 is 5th highest in minor league history. Buck Frierson. Red Howell was another player. They called him Porky. He batted .286 with 2 hits and 7 at-bats. He had 2 RBIs, 4 walks in 11 games. Howell was born in 1909 in Atlanta, Georgia, and died in 1950 at Travelers Rest, South Carolina at age 41. His MLB career was just with the Cleveland Indians in 1941. He was a pinch hitter that year. In the minors, he played for the Carrollton Frogs, Greenville Spinners, Knoxville Smokies, Jersey City Giants, Atlanta Crackers, Tulsa Oilers, Los Angeles Angels, and Milwaukee Brewers. Red Howell. Horace Hockett was an outfielder. Hockett batted .333 with 2 hits and 6 at-bats. He scored at an RBI, 2 walks in 2 games. Hackett was born in 1909 in Amboy, Indiana, and died in 1969 in Torrance, California at age 59. For his career, he batted .276 with 13 hits and 214 RBIs. Hackett played for the Brooklyn Dodgers, Cleveland Indians, and Chicago White Sox between 1938 and 1944. He was an All-Star in 1944 with the Tribe. He played in the minor leagues for the Norfolk Elks, Sioux Falls Canaries, Dayton Ducks, and Nashville Vols. Orris Hackett. Les Fleming played some first base. Fleming batted .250 with 2 hits and 8 at-bats. He had a double, 2 RBIs in 2 games. Fleming was born in 1915 in Singleton, Texas, and died in 1980 in Cleveland, Texas at age 64. For his career, he batted .277 with 29 home runs and 199 RBIs. He played for the Detroit Tigers, Cleveland Indians, and Pittsburgh Pirates between 1939 and 1949. He also played for the St. Mary's Rattlers baseball team. Les Fleming. Vern Freiberger played some first base. Freiberger batted .125 with 1 hit and 8 at-bats. He scored at an RBI in 2 games. Freiberger was born in 1923 in Detroit, Michigan, and died in 1990 in Palm Springs, California at age 66. His MLB career was just with the Cleveland Indians in 1941. He was 17 years old, the youngest American League player in 1941. In the minor leagues, he played for the Flint Arrows Cedar Rapids Raiders. During the Second World War, he was in the U.S. Navy for 3 years. In the minor leagues, he also played for the Charleston Rebels, Wilkes-Barre Barons, Suffolk Goobers, Emporia Nationals, Palatka Azaleas. Vern Freiberger. Fabian Gaffke played some outfield. Gaffke batted .250 with 1 hit and 4 at-bats. He walked twice in 4 games. Gaffke was born in 1913 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and died in 1992 in Milwaukee at age 78. For his career, he batted .227 with 7 home runs and 42 RBIs. Gaffke played for the Boston Red Sox and Cleveland Indians between 1936 and 1942. Fabian Gaffke. Chuck Workman batted 4 times, did not have a hit. He scored 2 runs, had a walk in 9 games. Workman was with Cleveland in 1938 and 1941, so this was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1946. Chuck Workman. Bob Lemon played some third base. Lemon batted .250 with 1 hit and 4 at-bats in 5 games. Lemon was born in 1920 in San Bernardino, California, and died in 2000 in Long Beach, California at age 79. He actually converted into a pitcher and was a tremendous pitcher. He won 207 games, lost 128, with an ERA of 3.23 and 1,277 strikeouts. He was also an MLB manager, won 430 games, lost 403 for a winning percentage of .516. Lemon played for the Cleveland Indians from 1941 to 1942 and from 1946 to 1958. He was the manager of the Kansas City Royals from 1970 to 1972. He also managed the Chicago White Sox from 1977 to 78, and he was the New York Yankees manager between 1978 and 1979 and 1981 and 1982. Lemon was a 7-time All-Star between 1948 and 1954. He won a World Series title in 1948 with the Tribe, also 1978 as manager of the Yankees. He was a 3-time American League wins leader, 1950, 54, and 55. He was the American League strikeout leader in 1950. He threw a no-hitter on June 30th, 1948. The Tribe retired as number 21. He's in the Tribe Hall of Fame, and in 1976 was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Lemon was in the U.S. Navy in the Second World War. In the 1948 World Series, Lemon won 2 games, so major contributor. In the early 1950s, Lemon was in the Tribe rotation with Bob Feller, Mike Garcia, and Early Wynn, the Big Four. 1946, Lemon was in the outfield on April 30th when Bob Feller had a no-hitter, and reportedly Lemon had a daring catch and throw to and double off a man off second base. So he played a key role playing center field for one of Bob Feller's no-hitters. 1948, he was the American League Pitcher of the Year. He was the starting pitcher in Game 6 of the World Series clinching title game. 1951, he was the highest paid MLB pitcher. On 1950, he had a 1951 on opening day. He threw a no-hitter. Ted Williams said this quote, "I have to rate Bob Lemon as one of the very best pitchers I ever faced." When he was inducted in 1976 in the Hall of Fame, Lemon said, quote, "It's a great thrill. My mother is 83, but she is making the trip from California. She says she can die happy now that I've been elected to the Hall of Fame." After he retired, he was a Tribe scout and coach. He coached the Phillies and California Angels. In 1976, he was a pitching coach with the Yankees. Lemon's model manager was Al Lopez. Lemon said, quote, "Al Lopez always handled his players like I'd wanted to be handled. He treated men like men. He made them feel relaxed. That's the only way to play the game, by being relaxed. You can't be worried about the manager getting on you. All the time I was at Cleveland, I saw Al Lopez get mad only twice. He never showed anybody up. I don't do it either." When he was hired to manage the Kansas City Royals in 1970, Lemon said, quote, "I know many major league owners are against hiring a former pitcher as manager, and I've always wondered why. Pitching is 75% of the game. If it's so important, why not have a former pitcher as manager? He can always have someone else run the other 25% of the club." And then he won the 1978 title as manager of the Yankees. And a sports writer wrote, quote, "Many observers feel that Bob Lemon's low-keyed approach with the Yankees' temperamental millionaires, as compared to the combativeness of Billy Martin, served to mold a spirit of togetherness among the Yankees that did not exist last summer when they won it all." 10 days after the 1978 World Series, which he won as manager, his 26-year-old son Jerry was killed in a car accident. Very tragic, and that really affected him. Naturally, it would, and he didn't have the same competitive spirit after that. Tremendous career for Bob Lemon. Jack Conway played some shortstop. Conway batted .500 with 1 hit and 2 at-bats. He had an RBI in 2 games. Conway was born in 1918 in Bryan, Texas, and died in 1993 in Waco, Texas at age 74. For his career, he batted .304 with 18 home runs and 146 RBIs. Conway played for the Cleveland Indians and New York Giants between 1941 and 1948. He was on the Texas Longhorns baseball team, and he was also a manager in the minor leagues for the Colorado Springs Sky Sox. Jack Conway. Now, the pitching staff was anchored by the ace pitcher Bob Feller. He was 25-13, led the league with 25 wins, an ERA of 3.15, led the league in games 44, led the league in starts 40, 28 complete games, 6 shutouts, 2 saves, led the league in innings pitched with 343, led the league in strikeouts with 260. Feller batted .150 with 18 hits. He scored 11 runs, had a double, 4 triples, a home run, 12 RBIs, 8 walks, and struck out 44 times. Feller was with Cleveland from 1936 to 1941 and from 1945 to 1956 and was a Tribe Goodwill Ambassador to the end of his life. He was the American League starting pitcher in the All-Star game, went 3 innings, 4 strikeouts, and gave up 1 hit. And in that game, Ted Williams hit a 3-run home run in the 9th to help the American League win. Bob Feller. Al Milnar was second in the rotation. Milnar was 12-19 with an ERA of 4.36. 35 games, 30 starts, 9 complete games, a shutout, 229 in the 3rd innings pitched, and 82 strikeouts. Milnar batted .171 with 14 hits. He scored 9 runs, had 2 doubles, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, a stolen base, 5 walks, and struck out 25 times. Milnar was with Cleveland in 1936 and from 1938 to 1943. Al Milnar. Al Smith was 12-13 with an ERA of 3.83, 29 games, 27 starts, 13 complete games, 2 shutouts, 206 and 2/3 innings pitched, and 76 strikeouts. Smith batted .155 with 11 hits. He scored 8 runs, had a double, and a home run, 3 RBIs, 11 walks, and struck out 20 times. And Smith was with Cleveland from 1940 to 1945. Al Smith. Jim Bagby Jr. was 9-15 with an ERA of 4.04, 33 games, 27 starts, 12 complete games, 2 saves, 200 2/3 innings pitched, and 53 strikeouts. Bagby batted .243 with 18 hits. He scored 5 runs, had 8 RBIs, a walk, and struck out 6 times. Bagby was born in 1916 in Cleveland, Ohio, and died in 1988 in Marietta, Georgia, at age 71. For his career, he was 97 96, with an ERA of 3.96 and 431 strikeouts. Bagby pitched for the Boston Red Sox, Cleveland Indians, and Pittsburgh Pirates between 1938 and 1947. He was an All-Star in 1942 and 1943. His father was Jim Bagby Sr., an MLB pitcher, who pitched for the Tribe between 1916 and 1922 and won a World Series title in 1920 with the Tribe. 1944, Jim Bagby Jr. was in the U.S. Merchant Marine. After he retired, he became a pro golfer. He was inducted into the Georgia Sports Hall of Fame. Bagby had a lifelong dislike of sports writers. He was born with a cleft palate, and writers made fun of his appearance. Bagby and his father were the first father and son both to appear in World Series. Senior in 1920 with the Tribe and Junior in 1946 with the Red Sox. He's one of 3 pitchers in MLB history to record 3 putouts in 1 inning. The others were Bob Hefner of the 63 Red Sox and Rick Russell of the 75 Cubs. Bagby and Al Smith were the pitchers who stopped Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak on July 17, 1941 at Cleveland Municipal Stadium. In the minor leagues, Bagby played for the Charlotte Hornets, Hazleton Red Sox, Little Rock Travelers, Rocky Mount Red Sox, Tampa Smokers, and Atlanta Crackers. Jim Bagby Jr. Sorry about the beeping. Mel Harder was 5-4 with an ERA of 5.24, 15 games, 10 starts, a complete game, a save, 68 2/3 innings pitched, and 21 strikeouts. Harder batted .080 with 2 hits. He scored a run and struck out 7 times. Harder was a Tribe player between 1928 and 1947, and a Tribe coach between 1948 and 1963. Mel Harder. Now the bullpen, Clinton Brown was a relief pitcher. Brown was 3-3 with an ERA of 3.27, 41 games, 5 saves, 74 1/3 innings pitched, and 22 strikeouts. Brown batted .118 with 2 hits and 17 at-bats. Scored a run, had a triple, 2 RBIs, 2 walks, and struck out 5 times. Brown pitched for Cleveland from 1928 to 1935 and from 1941 to 1942 and is buried at Lakewood Park Cemetery in Rocky River, Ohio. Clint Brown. Another relief pitcher was Joe Having, who was 5-2 with an ERA of 2.29, 27 games, 3 starts, 2 complete games, a shutout, 5 saves, 70 2/3 innings pitched, and 18 strikeouts. Having batted 15 times, did not have a hit. He had 2 RBIs, walked 3 times, and struck out twice. Having was with Cleveland from 1937 to 1938 and from 1941 to 1944. Joe Having. Joe Krakauskas was also in the bullpen. Krakauskas was 1-2 with an ERA of 4.10, 12 games, 5 starts, 41 2/3 innings pitched, and 25 strikeouts. Krakauskas batted .077 with 1 hit and 13 at-bats and struck out 5 times. Krakauskas was born in 1915 in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and died in 1960 in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, at age 45. For his career, he was 26-36 with an ERA of 4.53 and 347 strikeouts. Krakauskas pitched for the Washington Senators and Cleveland Indians. Between 1937 and 1946, he gave up the final hit in Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak at League Park, and he was of Lithuanian descent. Joe Krakauskas. Harry Eisenstadt was 1-1 with an ERA of 4.24, 21 games, 2 saves, 34 innings pitched, and 11 strikeouts. Eisenstadt batted .333 with 2 hits and 6 at-bats. He scored a run and struck out once. Eisenstadt was with Cleveland from 1939 to 1942. Harry Eisenstadt. Steve Gromek was 1-1 with an ERA of 4.24, 9 games, 2 starts, a complete game, 2 saves, 23 1/3 innings pitched, and 19 strikeouts. Gromek batted .167 with 1 hit and 6 at-bats. He scored a run and struck out once. Gromek was born in 1920 in Hamtramck, Michigan, and died in 2002 in Clinton Corner Township, Michigan, at age 82. For his career, he was 123 and 108, with an ERA of 3.41 and 904 strikeouts. Gromek pitched for the Cleveland Indians and Detroit Tigers between 1941 and 1957. He won a World Series title in 1948 with the Tribe. He was an All-Star in 1945 with the Tribe. He was the winning pitcher of Game 4 of the 1948 World Series. And of course, there's the famous photograph of Gromek hugging Larry Doby, who hit a home run in the game. And the photograph symbolizes friendship between white and black Americans, friendship between European descent Americans and African Americans. After he retired, he was a player and player manager in the minors for 1 year. He went into car insurance sales and was a car insurance sales rep. His parents were Polish immigrants. Larry Doby, when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, had this to say about the famous photo with Steve Gromek, quote, "That was a feeling from within, the human side of people, one black and one white, that made up for everything I went through. I would always relate back to that whenever I was insulted or rejected from hotels. I'd always think about that picture. It would take away all the negatives." In 1981, Steve Gromek was inducted into the National Polish-American Hall of Fame. Steve Gromek. Chubby Dean was 1-4 with an ERA of 4.39. 8 games, all starts, 2 complete games, 53 and a third innings pitched, and 14 strikeouts. Dean batted .160 with 4 hits and 25 at-bats. Scored 2 runs, had a double, 2 RBIs, 3 walks, and struck out twice in 17 games. Dean was born in 1915 in Mount Airy, North Carolina, and died in 1970 in Riverside, New Jersey at age 55. For his career, he was 30 and 46 with an ERA of 5.08, and he batted .274 for his career. Dean played for the Philadelphia Athletics and Cleveland Indians between 1936 and 1943. In the Second World War, he was in the U.S. military between 1943 and 1946. In the minor leagues, he played for the pitched for the Minneapolis Millers. Chubby Dean. Ken Youngles had no decisions and an ERA of 7.24 in 6 games, 13 and 2/3 innings pitched, and 6 strikeouts. He batted twice and did not have a hit. Youngles was with Cleveland from 1937 to 1938 and from 1940 to 1941. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1942. Ken Youngles. Cal Dorsett was 0-1 with an ERA of 10.32, 5 games, 2 starts, 11 and a third innings pitched, and 5 strikeouts. Dorsett batted twice, did not have a hit, and he had an RBI. He was with Cleveland in 1940 to 1941 and 1947. Cal Dorsett. Red Embry was 0-1 with an ERA of 6.75, 1 game, which was a start, 4 innings pitched, and 4 strikeouts. Embry batted once, did not have a hit. He was born in 1917 in El Monte, California, and died in 1996 in Eugene, Oregon at age 79. For his career, he was 31 and 48 with an ERA of 3.72 and 286 strikeouts. He played for the Cleveland Indians, New York Yankees, and St. Louis Browns between 1941 and 1949. From 1942 to 1944, he was a farmer, and he pitched in the minor leagues until 1952. Red Embry. And finally, Nate Andrews had no decisions and an ERA of 11.57, 2 games, 2 and a third innings pitched, and a strikeout. He batted once and did not have a hit. Andrews was with Cleveland in 1940 to 1941. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1946. After the regular season, the 1941 World Series was played. The American League champions, the New York Yankees, defeated the National League champions, Brooklyn Dodgers, 4-1. It was a Subway Series in New York City, and this was the first of 7 New York Yankees Brooklyn Dodgers World Series between 1941 to 1956. And the Yankees won 6 of them. They won all of them except in 1955 when Brooklyn won. Hall of Famers in the World Series included umpire Bill McCowan, and for the Yankees, Joe McCarthy, the manager, Bill Dickey, Joe DiMaggio, Joe Gordon, Phil Rizzuto, and red roughing. For the Dodgers, Leo DeRocher, the manager, Billy Herman, Joe Medwick, and Pee Wee Reese. Of course, after the Dodgers moved to L.A., there were 4 New York Yankees L.A. Dodgers World Series, and the last being in 1981. Now, the MVPs for 1941 were in the American League, Joe DiMaggio of the New York Yankees, and in the National League, Dolph Camilli of the Brooklyn Dodgers. So that's the story of the 1941 Cleveland Indians. They had a decent year. God bless the fellows who played for the Cleveland Indians in 1941 and everyone else associated with the team, including the fans, especially the Civil War veterans, Spanish-American War veterans, and First World War veterans. Captains of the Cuyahoga, lovers of Lake Erie, Terminal Tower Power, fans of the Free Stamp statue and the Fountain of Eternal Life, Euclid Avenue electricity, Cleveland Museum of Art enthusiasts, Christmas Story House happy people, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum rebels, Cleveland Botanical Garden goers, First Energy Stadium friends, Progressive Field pals, Quicken Loans Arena enthusiasts, Tribe, Browns, Cavs, Monsters, and Gladiators rule. Cleveland, City of Champions. Cleveland is the best location in the nation on the north coast of America. New York is the Big Apple. Cleveland is a plum. Before you know it, it'll be opening day 2019. Go Tribe. This is our year. You might consider checking out our website, Adventures in History with Peter J. Ray at peterjray.com. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.